Okay, my next video wasn't going to be another WWE video, but then this happened, and I can't not talk about it. So many things that happen on SmackDown are so mind-boggling that it compels me to speak on them. So, if you don't know the story so far, Randy Orton won at Elimination Chamber to face Cody Rhodes at WrestleMania for the WWE Championship. Week 1 of this feud was pretty good. They did blood and a stare, and it was pretty neat. You know, it was pretty standard pro wrestling fare, and some pretty heated stuff between these two guys who had like 20 years of history between them. But then WWE realized they still had 5 weeks left to book, and so they started a mystery storyline. See, Randy hears voices in his head, which, as we all know, means he talks to a guy on the phone. Randy's talking to a phone guy. Who could it be? So going with a mystery was a misplay from the start. First, we're only 4 months into the year, and WWE mysteries have already been overused. There was the box mystery, the masked man mystery. That's basically it, but they did the masked man one like 3 separate times. And now with this phone mystery, we've had a mystery man for every month of the year so far. Second, WWE mystery storylines are lose-lose situations, because the reveal is one of 2 things. It's either someone who makes sense but was exceedingly obvious, or it's someone surprising that makes literally no sense. And with this phone thing, we got the latter. And honestly, there was no sensible answer offered for the phone thing. Like, we just didn't get very many hints, and any hints we did get were kinda out there. Like, is it gonna be Ted DiBiase Jr., the 3rd man in Legacy who hasn't been with the company for like 15 years? Or maybe it'll be Stephanie McMahon for some reason? And then this week on SmackDown, phone guy was revealed to be Pat McAfee. Here's an introduction to Pat McAfee if you didn't know him already, and I'm so sorry to do this to you. Pat McAfee is a former punter for the NFL who, after his career, turned to sports commentary content. He currently has a show talking about football on ESPN, and he's been on and off doing color commentary for WWE for the past few years. He has a couple WWE matches under his belt. They're mostly fine. And for all intents and purposes, Pat McAfee is a quote-unquote mainstream figure who enters wrestling in a celebrity capacity, I guess. Also worth noting for me personally, his wrestling commentary is bad. He is often distracting. He often gets things wrong. At his best, he's like an excited little dog on commentary, and at worst, it feels like you're watching WWE with a frat boy who is very drunk. So this loud ESPN guy is now the centerpiece to a WrestleMania main event feud. You know, can't say it's the direction I would have gone, but I also can't say it's a very surprising direction, because obviously there's no storyline justification I can give for this. And the business explanation I can give, well, it's no more satisfying, but it will make things start to make a bit more sense. Let's talk about Ari Emanuel. Emanuel is the CEO of TKO Group Holdings, which, for all intents and purposes, is the parent company of the WWE. Ari Emanuel is also a talent agent who represents a lot of big-name actors. His clients include Larry David, Seth MacFarlane, Oprah Winfrey, and, of course, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. Well, in February of this year, it was reported that Ari Emanuel had also signed on to represent Pat McAfee in an acting media capacity. The quote that's been cited on this most frequently on Twitter and such is that Ari Emanuel wants to make Pat McAfee into the next Sylvester Stallone, which obviously sounds ridiculous, but also is not. Like, that's not, nobody posting this read the actual report, because this phrase is coming from a Bloomberg article that was reporting Pat McAfee signing on with Ari Emanuel, and that part of the article just begins with, Ari Emanuel is trying to turn Pat McAfee into the next Sylvester Stallone. Like, it doesn't come from an Ari Emanuel quote, it's not a stated strategy or plan, it's just what this article opened with as a way to frame the whole story. So no, Twitter.com, Ari Emanuel Emanuel is not trying to turn Pat McAfee into the next Sylvester Stallone specifically, but he is representing him as like an actor and clearly thinks that he has some kind of crossover appeal into movies and TV, etc., etc. And also Pat McAfee apparently got a starring role on a Sylvester Stallone show, so that's where it's coming from. We don't need to go in specifically into why Pat McAfee is not going to be the next Sylvester Stallone. He's not. He isn't. But Ari Emanuel being the owner of TKO and a representative of Pat McAfee, the narrative that has emerged is that Ari Emanuel, or at least someone high up in TKO, mandated this to be a storyline beat, or at least said, hey, we see you're doing this mystery man thing, put Pat McAfee in your mystery slot. And they said, okay. So there you go. A main event of WrestleMania is being used, at least in part, to raise the stock of Pat McAfee at the behest of his agent, who also owns the company. Cool. Awesome. I love it. The keen-eared among you will note the sarcasm, but honestly, this whole situation isn't even my main problem with the whole thing. You know, unwarranted celebrity involvement in the main event of WrestleMania. We've been there, we've done that, we've gone over it. You know, it is what it is at this point. WWE is integrating celebrities in really intrusive ways, and that just is what it is. Now, my problem with this whole shebang is the content they had within it and the storyline, quote-unquote, justification for Pat McAfee being here and talking to Randy Orton saying, hey, big dog, you gotta kill people. I assume. So let's run down the segment itself. SmackDown emanated from St. Louis, Missouri, and opened with Randy Orton. St. Louis is where he lives. He's a hometown boy. As such, Randy cut a devilish promo, but was cheered, because this is the place where he lives, and he talked about his family in the front row. It was a weirdly babyface promo, I don't know. Then Cody came out, did he talk? I don't really remember. And then just Pat McAfee walks into the ring. No build-up, no hullabaloo, no disguise, no, here's who I've been talking to on the phone, Cody Rhodes. And then Pat McAfee, he just comes out, he enters the ring, and he kicks Cody in the penis. And that's the reveal. It's weird that WWE usually has all of this over-the-top presentation and, like, if anything, overproduces its segments. And then this is just like, Pat McAfee enters stage right and kicks Cody in the ween. And then he talks. Pat McAfee talks about how he is an Attitude Era fan, and he hates the current product because it's not the way it was when he was little. And Randy Orton is gonna save the business because he's gonna save, live TV, he's gonna save the fucking business. Whoa, he swore. Oh my god, guys. I don't know if you can do that on television. That's crazy. Pat McAfee's crazy. So this was what I am going to dub an "Our Product Sucks and We Know It" promo. This is a song and dance that a wrestling company will wheel out when the fan base very audibly is not into their product currently, and they want to say, hey, in storyline, we know, and we're totally addressing it. You know, it's something WWE has done many times before. Back in the late 2010s, it was like a biannual tradition that some authority figure would come out on Raw and say, the show sucks right now, but we're gonna fix it, probably by punishing this heel scapegoat. And then, you know, nothing would change, but they cut the promo so they know, and actually they're not owned, in fact. They're not owned even slightly. You know, this isn't the kind of promo you want to wheel out. WWE's done it, AEW's done it, you know, in that weird 2023, 2024 period where they were talking about restoring the feeling. And Our Product Sucks promos were like 80% of WCW television in the year 2000. It is a fundamental sign of a company, if not on the monetary decline, certainly on the creative decline. And it's this very defensive way of trying to get in front of the criticism, being like, oh, actually, it's all storyline. So yeah, having Pat McAfee come out and say, the product sucks, ticket sales for WrestleMania currently sucks. It's not good. You shouldn't make it a part of the text of your show, even if you're getting cooked in the tweets and replies. But they did that, and you know what? It wasn't even my biggest problem with the whole thing. I know, it's like a turducken of anger. So what really pissed me off? Well, believe it or not, it was this specific line.
Why, when I turn on WWE TV, I have to watch 2 5'5" guys do a 45-minute Iron Man match 10 weeks straight for no rhyme or reason?
So, I'm a pedantic little fuck, and I had to check. The last match to go over 30 minutes on WWE TV was this one. It was a tag team gauntlet match, which means it was basically a collection of smaller tag team matches in a big match. I don't count that, and if you don't count it either, then the last match to go over 30 minutes on WWE TV was Cody Rhodes versus Drew McIntyre, 3 Stages of Hell, back in January. And I don't think you need me to tell you that other than that, WWE isn't doing a lot of small guy wrestling or a lot of wrestling at all. WWE TV shows have an average of 4 matches, and most of them run between 5 and 12 minutes, sometimes 15. I know that Pat is the heel and he's being hyperbolic, but the shit he's saying should at least be grounded in some kind of reality about the show. You know, you at least have to be somewhat on base. Your heel has to come from an understandable place, but this guy just talking about how WWE has too much wrestling these days? I'm sorry, it's just not true in any universe, in any perspective. And if I wanted to hear Pat McAfee yelling a bunch of unsubstantiated bullshit, I would listen to his podcast. But the problem here is that the explanation being given, the storyline being told, has no respect for the material reality of the show that the most loyal viewers have been watching and continue to watch for some reason. I know, my last few videos have been WWE. I don't consider myself a loyal viewer. I don't, in a vacuum, watch the weekly shows anymore. I'll catch the pay-per-views, and if there's a good TV match, I'll watch it, but other than that, I don't sit through these goddamn shows, because it's really difficult and puts me in a bad mood. But there are people who do faithfully watch these shows and are deeply invested in this product, in these performers, in these storylines. So the least you owe to them is to say something that makes even the tiniest bit of sense. You know, wrestling storytelling doesn't have to be perfect or perfectly logical, but you need to be in tune and in line with the audience, because crowds are the biggest part of professional wrestling. We've seen what happens when wrestling doesn't have crowds to play off of. It's bad. So you don't need to cater to your audience, but you can't bullshit them to this extreme of a degree to say, hey, there's probably a guy who exists who looks at the WWE today and says there's too much wrestling and too much flippy shit. That's not what the WWE has been ever, but especially not this decade. You know, if Pat McAfee wanted to come through and say, I don't believe in Cody Rhodes as the face of the company because he's too friendly and too nice to kids and too rah goody two-shoes, then like, fine, that would be something that's rooted in the text of the goddamn thing. But this is practically gibberish. And that's before you even consider the fact that the idea that Randy Orton, professional wrestler for 20 years, and General Menace needed Pat McAfee, fuckboy talk show host, to bring the killer out of him? Ridiculous. Actively harmful to every character that is involved. And Cody, you know, God bless Cody. I think he knows how bad this is. He came out later in the show to cut a response promo to the whole thing. This was a mess. This is his biggest mess since this promo in AEW, and if you've seen this promo in AEW, you know that's a high bar. And if you haven't seen it, word to the wise, my friend, avoid, avoid, avoid. Cody came out and said, this sucks. This is like if Disco Inferno was the 3rd member of the NWO, which, first of all, 30-year-old reference, fucking great, that'll go over well with the families in the audience. I'm sure the kids today who know who Disco Inferno is, and again, it's another example of that Our Product Sucks promo. 2 in 1 night is really bad. That is definitely entering WCW territory, and that's not something I say lightly. But then Cody tries to turn it into, you know, maybe I don't know what it's like, maybe I don't have it in me to be a killer and to be a heel anymore, and it's like, okay, character work, Feels a little late for it, but I'll take it. You know, and Cody had a kind of interesting point about, well, maybe I'm too content with my life. Maybe I don't know how to be, you know, ruthless in the ring anymore. And this brings up questions such as, how could Cody awaken that beast inside of him? You know, he's trying to tell a story with this whole hullabaloo, and I respect that at the very least. So to summarize, obviously it's ridiculous that Pat McAfee has been put into this position and inserted into this storyline. It doesn't seem like it would help move tickets at all. If someone knows about Pat McAfee, they know about the WWE because he's already been involved. He's already done matches. Is this really gonna turn your average Pat McAfee viewer and have them go, oh, I gotta see WrestleMania? No, it's pretty transparently just to raise Pat McAfee's stock because the big dog represents him and he's doing this for his client, basically. But that's not actually to blame for why this sucks. My blame, personally, goes to a creative that has proven time and time again that it has no idea how to improvise, no idea how to lean into an unexpected situation and make the best of it. I would be curious to know at what point they knew it was going to be Pat McAfee and how much time they had to prepare, because if it wasn't literally 5 minutes before the show, then surely your writer's room of like 12 writers, one of them could have come up with a more feasible explanation for why Pat McAfee is involved than, oh, the Attitude Era was good and now WWE is not good. You can even come from that fanboy-ish place, but you should make it a more modern reason, a more understandable reason, a reason that actually ties into the fucking show that you make. But this is just the most extreme version of something that has characterized this WrestleMania build, and that is a lack of investment in long-term or consistent stories. And I don't mean stories that happen over the course of a long time. I'm looking at you, breakup of the Judgment Day. But I mean following up on threads that the audience sees and values within the show. You know, Carmelo Hayes has been United States champion for the past few months, and he has been doing amazing matches on SmackDown. You know, his matches are kind of the closest thing to that 45-minute Iron Man matches that Pat McAfee's talking about. His matches go like 15 minutes, but that's neither here nor there. Carmelo really got over with the audience, and he did it through hard work, in-ring work, and being given this consistent spot on the show. And then 3 weeks away from Mania, what do? They have him drop the belt to Sami Zayn. And I love Sami Zayn, but it kind of feels like we should be rewarding both this wrestler and the audience who invested in them with a payoff at WrestleMania, right? And then on this episode of SmackDown, Carmelo had a rematch for his US Championship, and he just lost. And what did that accomplish? It got people's hopes up that maybe the Sami trick match at Mania would turn into a triple threat, and then just completely quashed it. And why? I'd say WWE are running around like a bunch of headless chickens, but at least a headless chicken knows how to build a sense of forward momentum. This is just weird and bad. Corporate meddling combined with a creative that just isn't inspired and has no new ideas. So yeah, if you're gonna take anything with you, read the articles that Wrestling Reports are aggregated from, because no one's trying to make Pat McAfee into the next Sylvester Stallone. That is some shit that a Bloomberg writer made up. Ari Emanuel didn't say it. This is the biggest thing that's bothering me about this whole thing. That quote was completely unfounded. Not unfounded, but you know, I don't know why. This is the biggest thing bothering me about it. I guess it's because it's not technically misinformation, but it's also not honestly, like, this thing got everywhere and their main takeaway is technically inaccurate. Anyway, my next video will be more in line with my Hangman video, so I'm really proud of how it's coming along. I'm looking forward to seeing it. Hopefully you're looking forward to seeing it. If you want to know when it comes out, you can subscribe to the channel, comment on this video to let me know what you think, and since we hit that nice 1,000 subscriber milestone, my channel now has memberships. The exact benefits of membership are still under construction, but I am at least planning bonus videos, which will be short little podcasty releases of reviews of wrestling I've watched or what have you. So, you know, if you want to support me by kicking a couple bucks my way, that is available now. And if you can't or you don't want to, no pressure. At any rate, thank you for watching this. Thank you for watching whatever's next. Goodbye.